Stranger Things Upside Down is a cooperative and solo-friendly game based on Season 1 and Season 2 of Stranger Things. You will take on the role of iconic characters from the TV show and you will perform different missions. Again, it's basically two games. You got two games based on the same game system on two sides of a double-sided board. This is the board for Season 1, in which you'll go around, you'll try to dodge attacks from the Demogorgon and from the patrols, and ultimately you're trying to rescue Will. That is your mission for this scenario. And then in Season 2, played on this side, you're rescuing Will again. Like, Will, come on, get it together. You're rescuing Will, and after that, you need to seal the gate. Back to Season 1, because that's where it makes sense that things should start. Alright. So, players, again, will play as characters from the two seasons of the TV show. Each player will have a character, but then not necessarily. I played the games solo with two characters by myself. In any case, you will need some characters. Each will have a cube that goes here and keeps track of how much fear they have. If any character ever becomes terrified, meaning their cube reaches the end of the track, everybody loses the game, and that's the way it is. So you gotta support each other, make sure you share your fears and don't pile too much on one. Items are very neat, very powerful things that will give you sweet bonuses, and you can have up to 2 at a time, as the player rate reminds you of. And also you will be able to collect possibly allies. Again, very neat and very powerful. And you have a different deck of allies for each season. The characters will be represented on the board by these miniatures. You might take a look up close. I know the miniatures are very important for some of you. You see a miniature of 11, but alas, she's not a playing character. She's just there. Her miniature is simply the turn track or the act track. So he's there. You are going to have an action deck, which is also the timer for the game. When the deck runs out, you need to reshuffle it, you move to the next act, and so on and so forth. There are game effects that will accelerate things, so they will make enemy attacks more vicious. More enemy game effects will come into play. This is called the scene deck. And I'm not going to show it to you, but suffice to say that certain actions will trigger the drawing and resolving of scenes with different effects. And really, it's kind of fun to discover them as they are hitting you really hard in the face. At least I found it that way. But these are usually negative effects that you want to avoid, but you can't always. Oh, Demogorgon is already there. And the patrols will be driving around and trying to catch you. These are the patrols. As you can see, the board is divided into the regular area, the regular world of Hawkins, Indiana, and then the Upside Down, which looks a little scarier. And moving around the Upside Down will give you fear, as you see there. So we got our heroic characters, and then we got a big bunch of tokens that have an exclamation mark on one side and numbers between 1 and 0, between 0 and 5 on the other. The main mechanic of the game is that each task, or most tasks you're trying to perform, will require you to beat a stack. And so you will set it up according to the rules of the game, and also very often to what is printed on the board. Say it says place 2 there, or here it prints 3, and so on and so forth. So you'll have these stacks, and when you try to perform a task, you will need to play cards and or use other effects that will generate a number. Suppose that I'm trying to beat that stack, and I play a 2 and a 3 and a 5, and that's what I played. I played a 7, I guess. So I played a 7, and then I reveal and see if the number I produce is equal to or higher than the total I produce. So if I produce equal to or more than that, then I beat the I beat the challenge. Otherwise, ouchie, I get scared, I suffer fear, I shuffle these tokens and I remove one of them without looking at it. And there may be game effects that also actually allow me to peek at the stack or to flip the one on top. So I know that that has been reduced by at least 2 right now. But that's the main mechanic of the game. During a turn, a player will move their character up to their full movement allowance, which is usually just movement of 1, is not huge. And they have to stop. And they have to stop if they enter an area with an enemy. Then, depending on where they ended their movement, if they entered the movement in a clear area without any foe, they can take the action indicated on the location, such as get an item there. Or, for example, again, if you're in the lab, challenge one of the stacks and try to beat it, and if you beat that stack, then you are able to get a bonus. Basically, enemy actions will trigger less often the more you work in the lab. If you are in a location with an enemy, you gotta fight them. And enemies will also have stacks. It's the same mechanic. In particular, suppose I'm down here facing off with the Demogorgon, and then the Demogorgon will have stacks. 4 stacks of 4 tokens start at the beginning of the game there, as you can see, but you also see how scary it is that there are other slots there, so more may be added by game effects. And also there will be special tokens for the Demogorgon that, how many? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Demogorgon, that the value of some of those tokens for the Demogorgon is equal to the number of stacks that are there. So if I found a Demogorgon token while I'm fighting a Demogorgon, right now the value would be 5. Later in the game, the value of that very same token would be 3. But fighting is still the same as taking a test. You need to play cards, decide on possible use of items and other effects. If there are multiple people in the same space, if you have support of friends, then the walkie-talkie symbol counts as an extra symbol. So this card right now is a 2 because I got a friend there. So produce cards. Then reveal the stack. You commit to your cards and resources before you look at the stack and see if you beat it. And if you failed in combat, then the difference of your failure is how much fear you take. Now in this case 7, it's enough to beat it, but suppose that was actually what I played. Having revealed a 7. By the way, going against a Demogorgon with a 4 is usually a bad idea. And I played a total of 4, revealing a 7, I take 3 fear, but at least, again, 1 random token is then removed from the stack, and maybe I chipped away at the Demogorgon a little bit. So, the game is really pretty much this simple. Active character moves, then depending on where they stop, either have a fight with the foe or interact with the board. Again, actions will be to, say, recruit allies that will be on the board. Action may be to get help from 11. So if you beat little 11 stacks, that's the action you find at the Wheeler House. Then you can activate. A special ability there. Collect items. Get info at the police station, which lets you either look at a stack or collect an item. Calm down already in case you have fear. That's where you reduce your fear or collect an item. So the idea is, again, pretty simple. Move your character, fight if you're with a foe, or activate an action from the board. After you're done, remember the cards that you played? You may have noticed that some have that symbol there. Then, once you're done, suppose this is the number of cards that I played, you draw and resolve a number of scene cards, bad stuff, bad, equal to the number of those symbols that you use, minus possibly buffer. That's why, say, if I beat that stack from the laboratory, says ignore 1. So this hand would not give me any enemy attacks, and this hand would give me 1 scene card if I had removed that stack from the laboratory. So that's the general idea. I know, that's probably a game mechanic you've seen before. You take your actions, you spend your action points, and then the board does something trying to destroy you. And you continue like this until either you're able to complete the mission, Rescue Will here, which simply means, I think you know what it means. It means beat all the stacks on the board that say Rescue Will next to them. Or on the other side, do the same, but first beat the stacks in the Rescue Will area, and then there is a stack representing a gate, and so you need to close that gate. In essence, this is how you play Stranger Things Upside Down. Stranger Things Upside Down is a really good game, and it's nice to get in that familiar space, a family of games that, well, they all have something in common, from Pandemic to Horrified, Fate to the Nostromo. We had the idea of like, well, you take your actions, then the board reacts, and you're trying to survive the way to complete your objectives, and you can play with your friends, cooperative, you can play solo. Why not? I read so many rule books these days that if there is a game that still feels like a fresh implementation of known ideas, so I don't have to work too hard to learn the new game, I don't mind if I do. This being said, the idea of like beating the stacks is particularly economic in that sense. It reminds a little bit of an early cooperative games of the pandemic the game era was Star Trek Encounters? No? Yes, maybe. The one where you're also like adding numbers to beat a certain threshold. But here there is a nice push your luck element because you're trying to figure out how much is too much. You're trying to minimize the danger coming from putting together a lot of cards with the danger symbol. If you can spread them out across multiple turns, they may not trigger at all. So it's a nice, interesting element there. There is a nice countdown element as you can go through the deck only 3 times before the game is over and you lose the game. That's one of the losing conditions. Of course, you don't want to get too terrified. But usually you can kind of avoid that. It's because you probably don't want to have like one bad hit, a complete defeat. So you'll plan, but then you're exposing yourself to the danger, of course, of again taking of your objectives taking too long to be completed. So it's a nice flow. It's very simple in essence, but with some interesting decisions. This being said, I prefer Season 1 to Season 2 because it feels more varied. Something that I like in cooperative games of this kind is when you have reasons to be together because you want to go there. And if you're in the same space, here the walkie-talkie cards are a lot more powerful. But at the same time, the game also gives me reasons not to be together. So there's a struggle, there's a tension. We have to figure out how to be in the same space as much as possible, but we also need to spread out. Again, the game Pandemic is one of the best in this department. We want to get together to exchange knowledge, but the diseases are all over the place. So here, Season 1 does that particularly well because Will needs to be rescued in different locations, including one down in the Upside Down, or 2 of them. Anyways, different places. In Season 2, there's only one space where Will needs to be saved, where all those save Will stacks are placed. So it's a lot easier to get there and just to sit there, and where you have advantages. The Demo Dogs, which are the big villain in Season 2 of the game, will come to you, but then you fight them there with the help of your friend that activates your walkie-talkies. And then the other person is looking at the stacks and beating the stacks with the help of the other person that is helping with the walkie-talkies. So unless I'm getting something wrong, it seems to me that Season 2 gives you fewer reasons to spread out and get together as much as you can, gives you more of a reason to stay together. In both scenarios, it seems like going to the lab early on is a good idea because that will give you a buffer, will reduce the number of icons that will trigger scene cards at the end of the turn, which can be a huge payoff later if you do that early on. So maybe there is this like thing that it's not really a minus, it just seems like most games you will want to open by going to the lab and maybe get some other effects and cards and items, and then boom, go and try to complete your objectives, which again is not, doesn't feel too scripted, but it feels like there is, I would say, a recommended, implicitly recommended path to victory there. However, in general, you got a game that is easy to play, has some real nice moments of tension. Oh, sorry, it was the wrong side. Has some real nice moments of tension, has a real nice sense of impending doom, a countdown that never stops as you play those actions, nice interactions, nice production value. So overall, I'm very pleased with Stranger Things Upside Down.